Alright, hello everyone. Just wanted to start the second part of my tutorial of how to paint up these Song of Ice and Fire miniatures. Last time we talked about how I magnetized them and for storage, and with that I have used some of that extra steel to make a platform for painting, just a piece of the steel attached to an old rake handle. You can use a wooden dowel, whatever, if this is something you want to use. But what we're going to go over is the priming of models and Zenithal highlighting as a way to quickly get a striking force on the table. I'm going to go over how to do it with an airbrush. That's the way I like to do it, but I'm also going to do one of these models up with a rattle can, so you can see how that works if you don't have an airbrush available. Just so you know, the rattle can's not going to give as good of results as an airbrush will. It doesn't atomize the paint as well, but it is something you can use if you need to. Alright, so these models have already been primed black. You can prime those however you like, be it with a rattle can of primer, with airbrush primer, with brush-on primer. These have been painted. Some of my models had been primed with the airbrush. Some of them were rattle can primed. And there's really not much of a difference between them. You can't tell after they've dried up. So we're going to go ahead and work on this Lannister model with the banner first, and we are going to be using just white paint to bring up the highlights. You can use other colors if you really want to go for a competition level paint job with something like this. I do that sometimes, and that's what I'm aiming for. You can at that point do some fun work with the shadows by doing an underneath shadow spray of a color that's complementary to your color scheme. So if you're looking for something warm, I like to go with green shadows. If you're looking for something cool, I like blue shadows. If it's sort of neutral, I tend to go with a purple shadow. And that gives you a little more depth to your paint job at the end of it. But for these, we're just going to go with black, and there's no black shadows in real life, but it does make for a striking paint job on a miniature. So let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully this camera will focus on this and you can see it. I have never tried to paint like this before, and I hope my hand doesn't get in the way. So first we're going to make sure the airbrush is going. Yep, we got a good flow. Alright, so you're going to pick a direction. I'm going from the upper left is where the sun's hitting on these models. So we're just going to go ahead and start the air and just slowly pull back on the trigger of the airbrush and start painting. Yeah, my hand's in the way, so let me try over here. Okay, here we go. My paint's flowing again. And just slowly start building up your color. Getting a little bit of dry tip here, so if you're getting that, all you gotta do is take your brush to the side, blast it out, pull back on your needle, give it a solid blast of your paint, and then you can get back to painting. Build that up. Hit his face. Make sure we get a little bit onto his chest to highlight there. Catch those ridges of the leg. We're going to come up onto the back of the neck of the horse and onto the front, making sure to keep everything to that left-hand side of the model. We're going to come down the horse, make sure that we highlight the joints there in the leg. On the rest of the horse's covering, I want to make sure to highlight the bottom a little heavier so we can get a nice gradient when that paints. Hit the tail from the top, hit the top of the cape, and again we're going to just hit the tops. We want to make sure we get a nice highlight on those bends, and make sure you leave the shadows there where it's recessing. We're going to leave that in shadow, get a nice effect, and then we're going to come over to the top and just give a quick highlight on the top, and then on the side of the horse we're going to make sure, again, we give up a little bit of color there so we can have a good gradient on the cloth of the horse. Alright, you're going to have to splice this together. I'm sorry about the little hiccup there. I ran out of memory on the phone But just starting back the recording, you can see what we did with the highlighting on that model. And I did go ahead and hit this other model real quick with the spray can, and you can see the speckling that you get with a spray can. So you can see that you can still use that, and once you glaze over it, some of that speckling will come out, but you will end up with a rougher, more splotchy paint job when you paint something like that. So with that, it is sort of the same thing. I will go ahead and do another model as a test. Let me find somebody. We'll go ahead with the start guy right here. So we've got the start guy, the swordman. We're going to go ahead and give him a quick spray, just to show you the technique since we finished the cav off camera. So we're just going to take a can of primer, white primer in this case. That way it's nice and flat. It'll take other paint when we go across it, and we're just going to go ahead and pick our angle. Again, we're going to start at the top left, and just going to give it a quick squirt. Just like that. And now we have a Zenithal highlighted figure. If you want to add a little more interest to the back, I do like doing that. I know other people who paint these don't, but just go ahead and try to match your angle and give it another quick blast. Alright, and there we go. We have one primed Stark model ready to go. And again, we have these cavalry models which were hit with the airbrush. So you can see what this technique looks like. I hope this is helpful. And next time I get on here, I will have all my models primed up and highlighted, and we will start with the colors to use for proper glazing.